Okay, thank you. Councilmember Nguyen, do you want to kick us off? And unfortunately, you're going to have to unmute, and I hate having to say that.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you to everyone who has joined so far, and I think we're getting more people as the clock is ticking here. This is a really exciting night because this is our first look at the 504 South Boulevard / Lot 1 project as presented by Pearl and their team. So I want to say that this is the very beginning. I see Councilmember Harakaris is here too. And we are excited, as everyone else is, to learn about what this project is going to look like and all the details of it. I'm going to turn it over to Paul Salmasak, who is our Economic Development Manager, and he's going to introduce the team. I think, Paul, you can lay out the agenda. I think the best thing to do would be to let Pearl make his presentation and then take questions after that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful as well. Councilmember Harakaris, is there anything that you'd like to say before we get started?
I just want to say I'm looking forward to hearing about the project. This was actually the first thing I voted on as a city council member. So it was exciting to be involved in a affordable housing project right off the bat, even though I just came in to give the thumbs up, but looking forward to hearing more.
Great, so thank you. So the way we proposed the agenda for tonight, to keep it simple, is we've already kind of done the welcoming from the council members. I would like to introduce the City of Evanston's team. I'm Paul Salmasak. I serve as the Economic Development Manager. I live a few blocks north of this site. And as we do in Evanston, we announce how long we've lived in town. I've been here 11 years. My sons are Lincoln, Nichols, ETHS Path. I'll pass it on to quickly to Sarah Flax. Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Sarah Flax. I'm the interim community development director and the housing and grants manager, both. I moved to Evanston in 1983.
Here we go.
And both my kids went through the whole school system and graduated some time ago.
All right, Cade Sterling.
Hello, my name's Cade Sterling. I'm a city planner in the Planning and Zoning Division. I've lived in Evanston, I guess, a little over 4 years now. Had a previous stint before that, about 10 years previously, lived here for about 1.5 years. So almost 6 years in total, I suppose.
All right, thank you. Now I think we shift to our partners at the Housing Authority of Cook County. Can you introduce yourself? I don't see who's Jesse.
Hi there, Jesse Silva with the Housing Authority of Cook County. I'm not an Evanston resident, but excited about this project.
Thank you. Is anybody else from your team here, Jesse?
It is just me today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Of course, I muted myself. I'll ask Johanna Casanova to introduce her team and then present the main event. As Councilmember Nguyen asked, we're going to, you're welcome to send me a chat directly if you're uncomfortable asking questions online. I'll read those questions. At the end of the presentation, which is relatively short, we wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to discuss the project, the process, the timeline. At that time, we can have a live Q&A session for those that want to have that. I would ask at the end of Pearl's presentation that you try to use the hand function at the bottom. I frankly don't know how to do that. I think it's under, if somebody could tell me how to do that, that'd be great. It's somewhere on the bottom where you click and you raise your hand.
It's under reactions.
Thank you. So under reactions, you raise your hand and I'll call on you after because we want to move quickly. So Johanna, do you mind taking over, introducing your team and stepping through the slide deck?
No, thank you, Paul. And thank you very much for the invitation this evening. Paul, I think if you wanted me to share the presentation, I'm disabled for sharing screen.
Of course, that would happen. There's 2 ways we can do it. I can try. Is there a way that you can ask me to share, or is it completely disabled?
It just says host disabled.
All right. Of course, this would have to happen. Give me 30 seconds to put the presentation up, and then you just tell me to advance the slides. Give me 1 second.
No problem. So good evening, everyone. While Paul finds the presentation, my name is Joanna Casanova. I am Senior Vice President of Pearl Developers. We presented to the City Council members back in the spring, and we are very excited that we were selected. This is probably the first meeting where we are trying to present to you the concept design as we move forward and we go next steps to start submitting the zoning process. This is just a first step to answer questions. So I will hold a second so we can get a slide so I can present our development team.
It's coming, I promise. Are we there?
Yes, excellent. So we're here this evening to present about South Boulevard Shores, its location, and maybe many of you already know, excellent location by the TOD metro stop at 504, 514 South Boulevard in Evanston, and just a couple blocks away from the lake. So we're very excited about this excellent infill development and changing the current parking lot for a multi-unit housing development that hopefully blends with the great community of Evanston. You can go next. So short presentation here. I'll shortly introduce you to a great team. We're just going to speak about proposal and very initial design, and then highlight the sustainability features we plan to incorporate, which were so essential to the city of Evanston. Give you an update on the timeline and address any questions you may have. Next, Paul.
Sorry, there's a bit of delay in transitioning for some reason. Just bear with my technology.
All right. So Pearl is a nationally recognized developer. We've been around for almost 20 years, and we are a developer owner of multi-unit housing, and we do both market rate and affordable housing developments. We currently own and have developed almost 7,000 units. And we are headquartered in Cleveland. We do have an office in Illinois, which I am the vice president of that. We are very excited to have partnered with Leopardo Companies as a general contractor. Together with Pearl Construction, we also have a construction arm. Leopardo is an excellent construction company, has been selected Fortune 500. They're a leader in multifamily and have been recently selected top 100 Greek contractors. So we are very excited about that, since we're trying to be a state-of-the-art facility and sustainability. As our architect of record and engineer, we have Hooker Dion, who also have offices here in Illinois and works nationwide with Pearl. And part of the team that is essential is Database Plus, which is an energy consultant that have secured many energy certifications and have extensive knowledge in energy modeling. We are trying to really, again, be state-of-the-art on the latest green technology here. The proposal will include 60 very high quality, affordable units. We have developed conceptually, and this may still change as we refine the engineering, 60 apartments. About half of them will be 2 and 3 bedrooms, since it was essential that we could accommodate families, given the excellent location and access to retail, transportation, and schools. And then we have also significant 1 bedrooms. We have about 66 parking spaces. And with that, I will introduce you to Eric Marin from Hooker DeYoung, who's our architect of record, to further explain the design.
Yes, like Joanna said, I'm Eric Marin from Hooker DeYoung, one of the lead project architects for the project. And I can walk through a little bit more detail of our design. You can see our site plan up there. You can see we have our location of our 5-story building there right off of the front, so we can kind of shield the parking in the back. We've set the building back, we've kind of varied the front facade, and we've set the building back in order to give, some front yard space to the project. There's a more commercial building, I think, to the west that's right on the sidewalk. And then obviously we have our residential that's over to the east side with front yards as well. And you can see one of the concepts here is to, instead of having an apartment building that has one single entrance off the front, we're providing some units that have ground floor access. So we can kind of provide a little bit more active front yard, with doors directly into units to give it a little bit more down, bring it a little bit down to that residential scale. You can see our site plan. We have our access drive kind of aligns with Hinman with that existing right of way to kind of keep, the traffic flow that we currently have on site with that parking lot. But this will also provide us a nice, pretty hefty setback to the property on the east. I think we currently have about 55 feet, which allows us that access drive down to the alley and to our parking in the rear. And then also you can see provide some green space and some landscape buffer as well. Johanna mentioned it's kind of underutilized lot right now. We do have 66 parking spaces, and we have 20 spaces included for the city reserved or rental spaces directly accessed off the alley, so they can kind of stay out of the traffic flow of the residents on site. And then we'll get to some sustainable design items a little bit later. If you want to go to the next slide. So you can see our initial concept, preliminary concept at this point, 5-story building. You can kind of see we're trying to use some different materials and some different massing, along the front to kind of bring the scale down a little bit so it doesn't appear as such a massive building. You can also see the corner there, which is the east corner, dropping that down to 4 stories, kind of as you transition into the more residential fabric. And this allows us to kind of bring the scale down, but it also gives us some space where we can provide some outdoor terrace space for the residents as well. And you can see with that articulation of addressing, giving those resident entries there as well. Again, so it's not just a stark front yard, but it can be a little bit more active, vibrant front yard, more like a residential neighborhood. Green spaces around. We've got some space in the, obviously, like I talked about the front, the east side. We've got some terraces as well that provide some green space. We've got the 20 dedicated parking spaces for the residents, and then we've also got some, as we get further into design of incorporating, rooftop solar panels or other sustainable elements. And I believe Scott's on the line as well to walk through some of the proposed sustainable elements.
Yep.
On the next slide.
I'm here. Can y'all hear me? Hi, thanks everyone.
Yep.
So I'm Scott Farbman with Database Plus and DBHMS. We've worked on many sustainability projects in the Chicagoland area, so we're really excited about this one specifically. And one of the key concepts that was really important to the entire development team, and something that we know that's important to Evanston with the sustainability and climate plan, is putting more effort and emphasis on low carbon building design. So right out of the gate, we knew that we needed to look at an all electric building, minimize, or, just right away, no fossil fuels on site. Not only does that help with the, the carbon emissions of the project, but it's also a really good health and wellness perspective that we're trying to implement throughout the building. Without combustion, that leads to better indoor air quality and just, the best possible living conditions for anyone who's going to be in the building. So with that said, we're also looking at how to create a net zero building. At this scale, it is inherently challenging to do it all on site. So what we worked on was implementing as much on-site solar that would be, allowed from a building design perspective. And then the remainder there, so any energy that couldn't be produced on site but was still being used by the building, would be offset by a green power purchase agreement. So that energy that is being procured or acquired from the utility would be from a renewable energy source. Also talking a bit about EV station and EV ready infrastructure, that is an important consideration here. And then, it's not just all about energy. There's other components of the sustainability strategies that trickle down to the rest of the building, like bicycle storage and stormwater management strategies, as well as Energy Star appliances. Taking a look at how to get composting into the project as well. And then also staying true to the Evanston requests and requirements as it pertains to landscape design and landscape management too. We know that mitigating fossil fuel use there as well is a high priority for the city. So kind of folding in all of the sustainability categories into this building the best we can. We're using Enterprise Green Communities as a certification and verification structure, and really just excited about a low carbon all electric building. Pass it off. Thank you. Johanna, you're muted.
I'm sorry, Johanna.
Thank you, Scott. Here to give you an updated timeline, we did receive the RFP award from the City of Evanston and HAC in the spring of 2022. We're just starting the community engagement and are planning to submit for the zoning amendment in November. While we do that, we are submitting to the Illinois Housing and Development Authority, which is anticipated as a main financing source. We'll start their preliminary review process this month. And then if we are provided an award, we anticipate to go for a full application in the spring, around February of 2023. At that same time, we will continue with the design and development and permitting for a goal of what we call a financial closing around December of 2023, which will kick off the construction start. So this is more like a construction of spring 2024 with expected occupancy of summer 2025. With that, we will leave it open to questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm going to try my best to manage the technology and the questions. So again, either send me a direct chat or use the tool to raise your hand, or just wave your hand on the screen and I will try to call on you as I see you. I see Dore has her hand up. I want to say one last thing. If we need to go back to reference a slide, I just beg for your patience as I slowly chug through the technology to bring it back up. So that's all I'm going to ask. Dore, I'm going to go ahead and you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your
Okay,
question.
Paul, I'm unmuted.
Thank you.
I have a few questions. I know that when Reba Place Fellowship, they had come and talked to us because there are 7 families that are going to be moving, 6 families of color, and then our household. And no one has still approached us, told us what's happening. I know that when I moved there in 1986, the tree in my backyard was a record-breaking tree. And I have some concerns that there is a lack of transparency. We have heard that the project will be affordable for only 15 years max. So I'm concerned because no one has come and talked to us. I'm on oxygen, sometimes 24/7. But every night, my partner is ill. I'm a senior. I mean, no one has said anything, and we feel initially we were told this was only going to be 3 stories. I'm concerned that the developer called once and didn't, and also called my neighbor, Kelvin, and never called us again. He just wanted to he wanted to take our house. He wanted to buy the places for a pittance. I I don't know what's happening, and I think that that's wrong. And I just want to know, Paul, I want to know what's happening. We did a FOIA to see the paperwork that was supposedly given to the people in the community. The Cook County housing thing, we never saw the paperwork. We've never been given anything. And when I said this was going to be more than 3 stories, I was told that I was exaggerating and a liar. I'm sitting here now, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I had gotten years back a HUD loan, and I was told I couldn't improve my home because this project was coming. I've been living like this since 2004, and I've lived in that house since 1986. And no one's reached out to me or my neighbors. How are we going to move? Where are we going? What's going to happen to us? Because obviously we can't move into that building, and all of us are low to moderate income. So I have a lot of
Yeah,
questions.
I think a few of us, and Kelvin, I see your hands up. I want to take a few minutes to answer Dore's concerns, and then also ask my colleagues and Pearl to weigh in, and if council member has any input. So I want to stress that your house and Kelvin's house are not displaced in this plan. That in fact, they're maintained, and on that proposed site plan, they are showing access to your property. So I want that to be very clear. There's no displacement happening.
That's the first I've heard of that, but I have been told that because Oakton was mapped out prior to the Civil War, and I did work for the city once upon a time, and if you look, yes, Hinman goes through Calvary Cemetery, so does Forest, so does Michigan, but I've heard that my whole backyard's going to be gone. I've paid taxes on that.
Yeah, I would
And-
say, I would ask, I mean, but okay, so let's pause there because I want to make sure let's respond to some of the things. This is literally, we have not gone to zoning yet, right? This is before zoning. This is a community meeting before we enter the zoning process. What you've seen tonight is kind of a pre-zoning site plan and rendering. There would be additional work that would need to be required before we submit for zoning analysis. And I would ask somebody on the community development team to fact check me as I say this. So just be aware of that. And if we'll get you a copy of what we presented. We're gonna make sure to post it on the website, but you'll see on the site plan that your property is not impacted other than that east, and in your case, it's the west side of where Hinman extends down to the alley. There's
Okay, well,
there's some greening up that happens, but there's also 2 pads that are suggested on that site plan for you and Kelvin. So
well, that is changed then. And there is a post on my property that the city of Evanston put up years ago after one of the snow plows went through where there used to be a 3-car garage, went through and took out
Wow.
my brand new vehicle, and it was put there to delineate my property. And then I look at your plans and it's totally different.
Okay.
And that was put there by the city of Evanston. And I have maintained that area, and so is Kelvin. And then we look at, I mean, the last plan I looked at, my house was gone. And then I was told that I'm only going to have 4 feet off my front porch and I won't be able to park there, and I am handicapped.
None of that's the case in this particular project. So we're going to get you a copy of the site plan, and one of us will step through it with you so you can compare it.
Okay, so I
Yeah,
appreciate.
Eric or Johanna, do we have that site plan that is the one you've drawn? Is that to like the scale of the survey and things like that? Okay, so
Yes,
yeah,
we
we'll spend more time with you on that, so you can see how this lays out.
Okay, because when the developer calls me and wants to buy my house for half of what it's even assessed at, I'm wondering what's going on.
Yeah,
When they
and I
So
don't.
I can clarify. My name
Thank
is
you.
Joanna. I don't think our owner joined today, David Berg. Pearl developed, if I'm not mistaken, reached out as we were exploring on both sides the feasibility to expand, and we also reached out to the Catholic cemeteries to the west. We were trying to cater to the RFP to enhance the community area, and we were really exploring how we could increase and provide more units or enhance the entire, in different ways, the area. It was only concept in nature and also to gauge interest. So I personally reached out to Catholic cemeteries, and then David Berg, our owner, reached out to I believe your home, and the other property owner, because you guys were immediately next to our development. To the best of my knowledge, we weren't really negotiating purchase prices, but he's not here this evening, but again, it was concept and to gauge interest. It wasn't, and as of today, it's not our intent to purchase your properties. We have decided to keep the development within the property limits of the ownership of the city of Evanston and the Housing Authority of Cook County sites, because the site is comprised of a consolidation of 2 sites, and there's 4 existing townhomes on the west, and then so it's partly owned by the Housing Authority, partly owned by the city. We do not intend to include both of the homes outside of these property limits, and we can definitely share the site plan with the survey and the boundary of.
Thanks, Johanna. So
Okay, well, it doesn't bode well, Johanna, when the people that are being most impacted don't know that. It doesn't bode well when I, who am a low income person, I'm eligible for LIHEAP, when I applied for a HUD loan and then was told that the city was going to be developing. I couldn't get the permits. This has happened more than once. And then the city comes and actually says, oh, you need to tuck paint, you need to do your roof, you need to do this and that. And and the last thing I hear is they're taking my home, and there was all this COVID money available. And I thought, gee, I could take out a loan, I could fix this, I could fix that. And for years now, I've been hearing they're taking your home. I've had them walk through my yard, the city, various plans, and been told. And so I'm really, really, really frustrated now because.
yeah, I'm sorry. I am sorry to hear that, but what I do want to stress is that we are not taking any homes for this, and in fact, we're keeping the project, or excuse me, the developer is keeping the project at a scale that is feasible in the current market conditions.
In the
So
current.
you're not going to see it expand beyond this, and you might see a tweak to the site plan or it shrinks it, or widens, or maybe the setbacks change a bit, but you're not going to see it go any further east. We need the drive lane to get in. We can't go west because Catholic Cemeteries doesn't want to sell. So there's one last thing, Dory, that I really need to address.
Sure, I
and then-
appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, then I want to go on to Calvin, his hands up, but there's something, Jesse, if you could please describe to us what happens with the residents who are currently living in the townhome units. That's really important for us to understand.
Sure, absolutely. So, if and when the time comes that, that we're ready to move forward on, preparing the site and demolishing those 4 units, we will offer the 4 residents of the existing 4 the 4 households in those existing 4 townhomes, moving assistance. We'll offer to move them a few different places. They'll be allowed to choose to take a voucher, housing choice voucher, and try to find a new rental unit on the private market on their own. We'll also provide them the opportunity to instead move to a vacant unit in one of our other properties located in Evanston. We do have some vacancies, and we're trying to make sure that we maintain enough vacancies within the remainder of our Evanston portfolio when the time comes that we will have to move people out of these 4 units on South Boulevard so that there are units available for them nearby in Evanston that we own. And so all that we're doing is moving them, half mile away, a mile away. And we will hire a relocation expert to handle this as well. We have, there'll be a professional who this is what they do day in and day out. We'll meet with all 4 households, figure out their needs, what's special, considerations they may have and where they want to move and how they want to move. And we will pay for all moving expenses and costs. So really it's, very hands-off from the perspective of the household. We are required by law to provide all of these services and this assistance. Really, it's, somebody will show up and say, hey, when these are the times you'll need to move out by now, what works best for you? What are you looking for? How many people live in your place? And then movers will show up, and really kind of a seamless process in that way.
Thank you, Jesse. Can Dory, is it okay if we shift to Calvin?
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, thanks for your so
It's a great.
we're going to follow up. We're going to follow up so you understand the site plan. Calvin, do you want to go ahead and ask your
Yes,
question?
can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, my concern is and my questions are the fact that I moved here in 1995, and this property was in poor condition, dilapidated, and it needed a lot of attention. And I remodeled this place. There was no, at that time, the driveway into the parking lot 1 was unpaved, practically it was gravel. There was a lot of issues that caused concern, so I called the city and I made sure that there was at least some patching done there. But it hasn't been done there for years. Now there's trailers and campers in there parked. It could have been utilized a long time ago. But the way it's going about now is that's my green space. I only have western exposure at my house. The windows are face western. So the only sunlight that I get and the only real exposure, green space that I got is from the western exposure. So if you have a 5-story building construction, whereas if you look down north of Hinman, all the buildings sit back at least 20 to 25 feet from the sidewalk or from the parkway. If you put a 5-story building next to a 2-story building, that can completely condemn my green space and condemn my property value that I maintained. And it was weeds over here before. The trees were, the bushes, it was nothing there but just rut. Now I've developed that and paid taxes on that for over 23 years. And now that's being taken away from me. The city wanted to put a new cobblestone or slate rock or whatever the pavers are in the front 10, 20, 15 years ago. They were going to cut back 4 feet to allow cars to park. It would have killed all the trees going down South Boulevard. But I maintained my stance, and I made sure that the green space and the trees were not going to be damaged. I don't think the engineers are taking the effect it's going to have on my health in my building in my green space and the cost of my, what I paid on my real estate. I think I'm gonna lose a lot of equity here. So I think my question is, what are you gonna do for my, health? What are you gonna do for my property value? I'm being pushed out practically.
Johanna, do you mind if I share the site plan that's not in the PowerPoint deck? That way I can show more of the east side of the Hinman setback.
I've seen the plan. And if you look down the finished curb, you look down the finished entryway from South Boulevard into Hinman, it comes all the way over to practically the trees that I have on my lot now. So the 5 stories adjacent, if you go, like I said, if you go down north, there are 3-story units. They can absorb that design, that structure, because they're all the same height. I'm not the same height as those buildings going down South Boulevard. And my property is further west of Hinman than the properties going down north of South Boulevard on Hinman. If you understand what I'm saying. So if you finish the street line curb, it comes closer from the parkway to my house than it would if you were on 525 Hinman or 530 Hinman.
Okay. I'm sorry, either Eric or Johanna, do you have?
Can you see my arrow here?
Unfortunately, yours doesn't show up on my screen.
Oh, okay.
You want me to we'll get through this quickly. You want me to, you tell me where the.
Eric, I think our intent, we were trying to protect the existing yards and keep it aligned with the existing yards of the neighborhood. As you can see, the green space area. Eric, maybe you can speak more to that. We could pull up the survey, but there are.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
where that green ends on the right-hand side is the property line. So you can see there's a green space, which is kind of what exists there now. I think there's some existing driveways along that. So you can kind of see our North Drive connection from south to the alley is really, our goal is to try to align that as close as we can with what exists there now. So we're not infringing on that that space. So yeah, that was our design intent, is to push the building all the way to the west as far as we can go within our setback, knowing that that building to the west is a more commercial type building, lesser impact, and then creating as large as buffer as we can. I think I said it's about 55 feet currently between the property line and our building. And then our building is set, as far north, kind of as we're comfortable, just to kind of maintain, again, the southern exposure for natural light.
So when you say natural light, what are your plans, or what do you assume that's natural light from a 5-story west of the 2-story that I'm at, as far as?
Yeah, there's going to be, as the sun comes around and sets, there could be some blockage, but for the most part, it's you can maintain your southern exposure.
So the finished curb would be, you say it was 50 feet from the development to the lot of my lot? I
think the face of the east face of the building is about 55 feet currently from the face to the lot line.
So that would be the finished curb. What you're saying? That would be the finished pavement?
Yeah, no, there's a space, there's the building, and then we have our drive, and then there's a green space. All of those combined are the 55 feet. That makes sense.
Yeah, okay, well, I have to take a look at it, but.
Yeah, well, so my commitment is that we'll sit together either on a virtual call or in person somewhere. Probably easier virtually, because then we can pull up documents and stuff. Okay, Mr. Lin, is there? You've definitely registered your concerns. We hear. We'll talk more about it as we. Did you have anything else to add?
No, at this point, no. I just want to see the lot line and where it stands. I did with DeRay, we did get a call. I got a call and I spoke with the developer, and he mentioned making an offer, which is my assessment value.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's not that's not appropriate. We can all come out of this, making each other not have any burned bridges, or how they say, any let bygones be bygones. This would be a great area for a green space for the development, but I'm not trying to do my assessment value. You got to do better than that.
So Calvin, I apologize. He's not here present. I also represent with the developer. I apologize if there was some miscommunications there. I don't think there was the intent to really set a purchase price or a purchase goal of the properties. We were trying to gauge interest as we were trying to, again, get the project to further than concept. And as of now, again, we don't have the intent to purchase your properties or include them in the property limits of the development. So we obviously will sit down with you, work with you, show you the property line. So apologies again, but we do not intend to purchase your properties.
okay, so I see. that-
Very important that we know what's going on, because I am
Right.
tired of double
Well-
messages. I mean, it's
What
like
you see tonight, what you see tonight on the screen is what will be,
I don't see my house on the screen. I don't see Kelvin's.
that means,
I
that
see where
means your
you guys
project's
are-
not, your house isn't in the project, so but we'll go through it. Your house, there's a little bit of that kind of debatable space that, we'll talk about it, but your house is untouched.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I have talked to former people in the city that put up that pole that's on my property,
Yeah,
including, Rick Voss from parking was involved in that. The police department was involved in that. Planning, which I used to work for, was involved in that. And I see these other marks. So just the emotional stress, not knowing one way or other, and the way both Kelvin and I were approached,
yeah,
left us, well, I'll get back to you. And, he called up and basically treated us like he wasn't very kind. And we've heard city staff and refer to our place as shanties. I mean, you're building affordable housing and you're forcing out, you're making people move. And even the people in the housing project, Cook County Housing Authority doesn't own any other places where there's fenced in yards like that for children. And Kelvin and I, if it was a reasonable price, we would have been willing perhaps to have moved to have green space. I mean, I had been told that, and I had spoken to Melissa and other people, that in order for the fire trucks and the cemetery to move, that my house was going. And I've just lived under that
that's-
stress. And I put that back on you. I mean, I look at the plans, I know how to read blueprints. Nobody told me anything different.
okay. Yeah, I'm sorry that you did not know that we were not interested in acquiring your property and that we're gonna design it completely on our lot. I hope we will but let's try to collaborate and move beyond that. And let's look forward. And again, I hear what you're saying. I want to follow up with you and Calvin and have a dialogue that we can spend more time one-on-one with your individual issues.
Okay, I got one more question.
Okay, and then we got to go on to Joan Agnew because we're going to run out of time. Plus, I've got 5 questions in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, so with that design, and I'm not an engineer, but I've been in construction a long time. So I know that the type of piers and the type of foundation that you have to put there is going to require some driving in piles and piers into the ground. I don't think my house can consist. This house was built in 1920. I don't think my house can take all that pounding and driving without having all the, the plaster and the stress and the settling of the building have some damage to my building.
So
So
Eric and
I,
Johanna.
I
can
need,
you-
I need to address that because
Can,
I'm a light sleeper on top of that. I'm not gonna be taking all that pounding. You know,
yeah,
it's
so we
gonna wreck
have,
my dog's life is gonna go down the drain. My life is gonna go down the drain.
yeah, so we'll talk with you one-on-one about that. I mean, we have a construction management plan and construction hours, and we're also, I believe Eric and Johanna can speak to this, but they'll have some requirements about maintaining the integrity of your building, and I don't know exactly how that works, but that is part of the entire process. But I'm not dismissing you. That's a concern that needs to be registered, and we'll have it as part of the one-on-ones that we have, but also as part of the complete construction plan. This, there's a project going up on the Vogue property on Main Street, and I want to quickly get to Joan, but there's a 1880s building on the lot line, on two of the lot lines. And, there was some pile driving happening. You probably heard it.
Yeah, I passed by
So
it.
yeah. So we're keeping an eye on that too. Okay, thanks, Calvin. Joan, I don't mean disrespect. I
you.
don't know if I should call you Miss Agnew or Joan.
Joan is fine.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I had two questions that I left in the chat, but I also have quite a few comments from someone who lives directly behind the Omley project that went up, the rental, and they're not positive. I live on Hinman. First of all, I do want to say I cut through the cemetery for my walk. Mr. Lynn, if that is your house with the gorgeous, funky green space and art, that is so cool. And that would be a loss for me. If you and Dore moved, that would be a loss to my neighborhood. So that being said, my first two questions were about other sites that were considered, and I don't know at what point in the RFP that would have occurred. So if you can hold on to that question. And then I was also curious, I know there was a site and a lot of protest next to the Housing Authority spot up the senior housing in Northeast Evanston on Noy Street. And I'm wondering if, we were the lucky beneficiary of an active community that rejected it up there. So those are those two questions. But in terms of living around construction, to Mr. Lynn's point and Dore's part, you guys who have garages, who don't live in a highly, highly dense area in terms of a population, have no idea how bad our parking is to begin with on the street. So I have to pay every month to park in the private lot across the street that I understand you've probably chosen this one because people don't use it or don't know about it. But at the very beginning, we had the construction workers coming in with like the 150 trucks taking up 2 spots in an area where we do not have the space. And God forbid it be on a street cleaning day. So there's my first thing. The next thing, right now, the traffic down Hinman, thank God we have speed bumps, but guess what, you guys? The backup on Chicago, and I'm guessing you've been in that traffic backup, forces people into our alley. So in between Chicago Avenue, oh yeah, don't make the face, come down my alley and see if you almost get run over by someone who has decided it's an expressway, who doesn't stop at the stop signs at the end.
Exactly. Every day.
Every day. You guys, it's bad. So now we're talking.
Flying through that. I'm gonna take videos and send it to you.
Right.
So just
But
pause for a minute.
True, twice in 3 days, Calvin and I had to run out of our houses, render first aid. We asked for them to put more traffic calming things in the parking lot. Another neighbor pushed 2 children out of the way as a car came around the corner. He was hit The children's
to ask-
bicycles were broken. It's
Yeah,
bad.
Sorry, Joan, or, so just to clarify, are we talking about the north-south alley between Chicago Avenue and Hinman?
Yes,
Or are we talking about the South Boulevard alley?
there's the South Boulevard and the one directly north of Keeney. From Keeney to Kedzie, they go straight through, right? They'll start at South Boulevard and that's their access. Now, at least there are speed bumps down on the South Boulevard area. And next to that cute little park and everything, there's some speed bumps, but they'll go through there, zip across Keeney and zip up my alley. And let's talk about that alley too with the Omni, the renters in Omni, right? So this is not a class debate because these are extra posh renters in the Omni place. They're coming out with their dogs. Their dogs are urinating on our buildings right by our doors. They're leaving the dog excrement. Some are picking it up, some are not. And again, we have a lot of renters even on Hinman. I'm a condo owner. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do my background. Grew up in Evanston, St. A's, ETHS, left, came back to take care of my sick parents and bought a condo fully owned up here on Hinman. That's my background. So longtime Evanstonian. And worked for CHA, believe in public housing. But the nonsense I'm hearing now about public housing and moving vouchers, you know what, please don't treat us like we're boo-boo heads, because I know what happened after 1999. But you know, right now we're dealing with dogs, way too many dogs because there's way too much density. And you know what the dogs are breeding? Because no one picks up after them? Rats. We have a horrific rat problem right now. We have people illegally dumping in our garbage. And to me, this is not about who's going in there, but this is about density. And you're putting, you know, it's just who's paying attention. You just keep cramming stuff into our neighborhood. And you have someone like Mr. Lynn or DeRay who, like DeRay is saying, look, I should be your target audience. And instead of like helping me, you're obstructing our views. And you guys aren't going to be living here during this construction. I lived through Omni. I know the cracks we have in our foundation.
Yeah, so I think, thank you. So there's a few things you said that I think that I can take back to my team that manages traffic, that manages trash in the alleys, that manages speeding, right? Those are things that Councilmember Wynn and I can work with some of the directors here.
And respectfully, I don't mean to cut you off, but
Yeah.
I'm in the parking lot and I still manage to get tickets from your traffic control person who doesn't bother to look at right now. I'm going to have to give props to the supervisor over that. She was very effective and very good, but it's the fact that I have to pay for the parking. And let's be honest, there are a lot of things that are so frustrating behind my condo, people just moving in and out and parking right in the middle of the alley, right? Another thing about density, and you respectfully, no, you can't call the Evanston Police Department. We're 20 people down and our crime is rising. Do you want to know how ridiculous I would feel to call because a truck driver is blocking the alley when someone's getting mugged some other place in town? It's not really realistic. So now I'm going to try to be quiet.
Thank you. No, listen, I appreciate all the things you said. It's a quality of life issue. I lived at 710 Hinman next door to you or 2 doors down from you for 8 years or so. I'm definitely familiar with the density. And I would encourage you, please call the police when you see I know they're down. It might take them a little longer to get there, but and I know we've had an uptick in some of the other serious crime, but they're not all out fighting serious crime at all minute. I mean, our town is doing very well despite all the challenges facing the world right now. So please let us try to help you. The quality of, please don't think that you can't call us because we're down staff. You need to please just call if you don't call 911 on something like that, just call the general line. Somebody will come out. So I appreciate that. You've said a number of things that we're going to follow up with you on. Okay, so I appreciate it. I'm going to read through a few more comments. I would also, without trying to cause a debate here, because I think, by the way, we are still not even technically in the public process yet, right? So next step, we'll recap in a few minutes, but we do have to wrap up. We'll recap what the process is. I want to just touch on something before I read a couple more comments. There is, I know Doré and Kelvin and the neighbors surrounding the property, even up to the mid block of Hinman, there is a certain sacrifice that's implied in this proposal, right? At the end of it, when it opens in 2025, we're hoping that we will be serving individuals who may actually already live here, or who maybe have grown up here and are looking for housing, but they can't afford it because they're a public servant or a teacher or whatever level of income they are. This sacrifice for 18 months of noise will result in 60 people or 60 units. Based on demographics, that's probably 75 to 80 people. There's a few 3-bedroom units too, but let's not get into that. What I'm saying is there's a sacrifice that we all can kind of struggle through, some more than others, to allow people to live here affordably. So I just want you to know that that's our goal with this project. And we'll talk about that more as a community. And I'm not suggesting, let me just say this, I'm not suggesting that you don't believe that. I'm just saying I want to remind people why we're doing it. Let me read a couple more questions. If there's more time after that to react, that's fine.
Paul, I just have to say, when Jean brought up the rats,
Yes.
okay, I've complained that they weren't even rat baiting in our area. But I mean, ever since this project was proposed, the cemetery guys came and told me that they were told to cut down all of our community garden there. I can walk down the street and show where there's sunflowers that are growing, but I couldn't have sunflowers. I had someone come out from the city and I was told I have too many plants, and I could grow West Nile. I mean, I feel personally harassed and stressed. I'm all for affordable housing. I don't have a problem with that, but to be harassed, I mean, I know about companion planning. I mean, when Melissa first ran for alderman, she listed the fact that I was conservation chair for Chicago Audubon, that I was on the board of Sierra Club, and not only just locally, I nationally. And to be told and have the city come out, you can't garden when I've got companion planning. To have the cemetery told me that they were told by the city to come and mow down my native prairie plants. There used to be vines and roses along the cemetery wall. And since this project has come up, you will notice there are no vines by my house anymore. And I asked the cemetery, and they told me that they were told by you to come and take down all our stuff. So that's why you're getting that reaction. I'm
Okay.
certainly for affordable housing. I'm low income, and I also want to know, how long is this housing going to be affordable for? We were told that it's eventually going to go market rate.
Okay.
I'm
So,
more than willing to sacrifice. I mean,
okay.
I've sacrificed. I used to have beautiful gardens. People came and took pictures of
We'll
my
talk-
garden.
Yeah, I understand. There's a lot that we all need to still talk about, all right? So
We do.
Yeah. Okay, Lisa, sorry, let me see. Lisa Kuklinski had a few questions that I'd like to read on her behalf. Okay, yes, I'm gonna try to get to these questions. We'll give it a few more minutes, okay? How many of the units will be affordable to those at 30, 40, 50%? Johanna, did you talk about that, or is that part of the finance, the capital, the stack that you still have to figure out with the state? Can you talk about that?
Yes, we are planning to have from 30 to 80% average median income level apartments. At this time, we don't have specifically the amount of each units yet. That will be further developed.
So repeat that, that's 30% of AMI to 80% of AMI?
Correct.
And so
And
that,
that, yeah,
do you
that's
have the
for
chart in front of you? 80% of area median income is what?
80% of area median income for a 4-people family in Cook County would be 83,360.
So a family of 4 earning 83,000, and then the 30%?
The 30% is at $31,000, 31,260 for a family of 4.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about. The second part of the question, what is the unit mix? I think you just said you didn't know. So
Between between 30s and 80s, we're still developing that.
so let me ask you this: when will we know?
We will probably know in the next 6 months.
Okay.
We do have a concept idea at this
Okay.
moment.
So right, and so the zoning process you laid out doesn't happen. It doesn't get approved before you know what your unit mix is. Like I think there's. So like that's this is all going to travel together. There'll be lots of opportunities where you're going to present that information and share that. Other question, Ms. Agnew asked earlier, and we got to get back to it. Were other sites considered? No, let me restate that. We intentionally put lot 1 up for an RFP after a community process prior, based on the growing need for affordable housing, and we compared it to the utilization of that parking lot from a percentage leased. So that's why we chose lot 1 as the first kind of example. This has nothing to do with what happened on Noyes. Somebody tell me, Sarah, tell me the name of the project on Noyes. And unmute yourself, of course.
The Housing Authority had presented a concept of doing a second building at 2300 Noyes Court, which is the Walchurch senior housing development. That wasn't even presented till well after we were already in the process of the RFP for this property. I do want to point out another important part of this site choice was this is in partnership with the Housing Authority. They want to be able to develop their property to provide more affordable housing as well. So it's a joint goal of the city and the Housing Authority to bring more affordable housing. And there are one of the things the Housing Authority will be providing for, I don't know exactly the number of units, but is project-based vouchers so that some of those units, even though that we may be saying they are at 30 or 50% of the area median, technically will work just like the units that are there right now, which they will, the tenants will pay 30% of their income and the rest of it will be paid for by the voucher. So this will have some of the most deeply affordable housing, but also go up and cover a wide range of incomes of people who simply can't afford to live and work in Evanston. And that was one of the goals as well, to provide housing for people who may work here but can't afford to live here.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. That's helpful. And I'll also add that Councilmember Burns has been very active in trying to acquire property in his ward to kind of spread the affordable housing development throughout the city. So
Paul, one other note.
Yes, thank you.
There is another project that actually has already gotten its tax credits. That is at 1805 Church Street, which was a abandoned. Well, it was a vacant lot, but it in the past it was developed. But that is a property that the city acquired, and that was put out for an RFP, and Housing Opportunity Development Corporation is developing that in conjunction with the Mount Pisgah Church, because they are simultaneously rebuilding their church or expanding their church. So that this is not the only project that we have, where this is not the only site where we are facilitating the construction of more affordable housing.
Thank you for sharing that, because that's another really important project. I see really quick, I see Carl Klein's hand is up. Kelvin mentioned that we should really, I'm paraphrasing, really spend some time understanding traffic patterns to make sure we limit traffic hazards, accidents, things like that. I believe you've done a traffic study that will be discussed as we go through the zoning process. Carl, do you mind go ahead and asking your question or making your comments?
Sure, I'm just going to quickly comment and say that I think that the city needs to commit to building affordable housing and placing it in all 9 wards of the city. And so I do appreciate that there is an attempt to build affordable housing in the southeast corner of the city. However, I do have some concerns with this project, and I do wonder if you all ever did consider using a community land trust or community land bank so that the housing could be affordable in perpetuity, because the City of Evanston's inclusionary housing ordinance only requires that the units in the building have to be affordable for 30 years and then they revert to market rate. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that. Before Johanna or Sarah respond, I share your passion around having affordable housing in all wards. Sarah and I actually sometimes get to really enjoy our jobs and spend time looking at maps and different sites. I would also ask you, Carl, if you can think of a site in various areas that that would be ideal for it. I appreciate your input on it. But I will just share that Sarah and I do spend time together trying to find other sites. Johanna or Sarah, can you address this issue of the length of time, or even Jesse, how long something remains affordable? And maybe Sarah, you talk about city policy related to that. And then we probably have to wrap it up.
This project is technically not covered by the inclusionary housing ordinance because the amount of affordable units it's providing is way beyond the requirement of that. However, much of the financing is through the low-income housing tax credit program. That program has a 30-year affordability period, but you need to realize that Pyrrell is an affordable housing developer and owner. They do market rate as well, but they own and hold and are committed to affordable housing, as is the Housing Authority, as I talked about how they're going to be involved in providing project-based vouchers to support even a lower income than just putting it an income level at 50 or 30%. So this is a commitment from organizations that are committed to maintaining affordable housing. One of the reasons there is a period of time that is limited is that one of the challenges is getting financing. After a building's been in service for that period of time, you generally have to do a significant rehab. And one of the things that this facilitates we have developers, it's, Pyrrell, HODC, SEPA, Reba Place. These are organizations committed to affordable housing. They need to be able to get their financing at that point to do rehabs to maintain the quality of the housing as well as keeping it affordable. So that's really how that structure is set up. Johanna, you probably have even more information on it than I am, trying to make it sort of at a layman's level.
No, Sarah, thank you. That was exactly accurate. The financing program we're going through will have a 30-year affordability. And HAC, I want to mention, we are lucky to have partnered with the Housing Authority of Cook County, and also that these sites are owned by the city and HAC. because one of the biggest challenges we have, I mean, we are all for integrated housing in all areas. We truly believe in mixed income development. We have great success, and we have developments right now in Lincoln Park where we're trying to really find sites to maximize blended housing with market rate units and also all income levels, which is where we think developments will thrive. But the challenge usually is the values of these properties in Evanston. It's a highly regarded, highly valued property. So we're very thankful that we can work on a site that's owned by the city and HAC, and we can make this project happen. The HAC, if I believe, may have longer extended affordability periods. So we obviously will work with them as their part owner of this.
Okay, thank you. So what I'd like to say in kind of closing, I'm gonna do this one more time, bad technology. The timeline, if I can get it a little larger for you. The next step for us in our public process, Johanna, Kate, or Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to submit your zoning analysis, correct, Johanna?
Yes, that is correct. We're working on the analysis on the application, or probably in the next 3 weeks.
Okay.
Next month, we will be submitting the zoning application.
Right, so that's here, and that triggers what I would estimate when I talk with developers, really up to a 6-month kind of zoning process to get it from start to finish. I hope that doesn't scare Johanna away. I think that's what we've talked about, and I think that fits into her timeline here. And during that process, there will be multiple opportunities for additional community input. I'll stop sharing. And again, we're talking about occupancy in 2025. But what I would say is to stay tuned. And I'll apologize. I do balance a lot of different activities, and I do have a small staff that can better help me if I delegate. But we'll update our website as we can. And again, I don't want to start a conversation over, but Dore and Calvin, we're going to have a separate meeting with you to check in on some of the more specific matters related to your site. But pay attention to the zoning analysis. If you follow local newspapers, both the Roundtable has stepped up their game. They're doing really strong reporting on community development initiatives. That will enter the system soon, whenever Johanna submits it. You'll probably see an Evanston Now article with a picture of the project. And that zoning analysis process takes a few weeks for staff to really step through it. And then it starts entering the committee process. We'll find out later on if we need to have another meeting to chip away at the edges and really fine tune the project until it's ready for prime time. So that's how I would summarize it. I would also like to thank everybody in this era of Zoom exhaustion. Thank you for remaining civil tonight. Like, we've got to work together to get through this, and I think we will. I appreciate that a lot. We had a lot of members on this call who were eager to hear answers to questions, and they asked me to keep the meeting moving, and I appreciate that. And I want to, as I always do, I always want to give council members the last word. And I'm going to say my last words, thank you, and we'll follow up soon. But Councilmember Nguyen or Harris, I'm not sure if you have any final words.
I just want to thank, like you, Paul, I want to thank everyone for participating tonight. And I do think this is a really exciting project, unlike anything else that we have in the city. So I'm really looking forward to following this as it makes its way through the process.
Thank you, everyone, on behalf of Pearl. And we are here to answer questions, and we will be in communication with you through Paul and the City of Evanston.
Councilmember Harris.
Just like to thank everyone for coming and being engaged, and I hope we can answer everyone's questions going forward and move forward with this exciting project.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Have a good night.